Hey everyone, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Roman.
And this week we're reviewing Godzilla -1. Coming up next! So for anyone who doesn't know, Godzilla -1 is the newest Toho Godzilla film, but it's a little bit different. This one is very similar to the original Godzilla movie. It is set right after World War II, after the atomic bomb has dropped, and it follows a kamikaze pilot on some decisions he makes, and we're going to dive into them in how
Former kamikaze
pilot, because he does
Failed
not actually
kamikaze
he
pilot.
does not commit kamikaze. And Godzilla gets nuked, and he's a very angry creature, and the death toll is way more than -1. It's so many people die in this
Godzilla
movie.
doesn't actually bring anyone back to life, which I guess would make it -1. But he kills a lot of people, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first time we have seen directly Godzilla killing a human since the original one.
Yes.
We've seen, obviously, in everyone, he's destroying buildings that people are supposed to be in. In Shin Godzilla, he hits the helicopter that his prime minister, I think, is in. But this is the first time since the original one where we get to see Godzilla chomping on people, hitting them
like
directly
crickets.
with the breath, which is awesome. But I think brings a necessary terror back to the Godzilla franchise. There's some Shin Godzilla is a movie I love, but one of the few things that I think could have been better about that movie, could have made Godzilla a little bit more menacing, kind of got their point across better, because that movie had a lot to say politically, was if we did get to see some of the real sadness and destruction of Godzilla on human violence, which I know sounds like a funny thing to say now because Godzilla's become so much this like fun kind of family character, but this is very much in the spirit of the original, which was almost kind of a horror movie.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you, first, would you identify as saying you're a big Godzilla fan or a big Toho fan? And then what was that movie, Godzilla, Toho, that made you fall in love with these characters?
I mean, I love Godzilla, huge Godzilla fan, huge Toho fan. If you don't know, Toho has one of the richest histories of, I mean, just any group of people making movies. Whether you talk about like the Kurosawa movies, Godzilla, there's just a really amazing history. What made me fall in love with Godzilla specifically? Believe it or not, it was Godzilla Final Wars.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen that one. Kind of a weird one to see as your first one, because there's so many homages to other Godzilla movies, but I remember being like 10 and watching that and just being like, this is so outrageously dumb and awesome and funny.
Yeah. I think for me, I've always been a huge dinosaurs person, which is very obvious from just the way I am. And at Goodwill, I found the VHS of Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, where it's not Godzilla, it's just a giant T-Rex, essentially.
Yeah.
Who's loose, and, he, like, destroys Madison Square Garden.
Is that 98?
I think it's 98.
That one sucks.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
That one's awful.
But that was one that really sparked my love for Godzilla. I will say I really enjoy Legendary's MonsterVerse. Like I think Godzilla King of the Monsters for an American Godzilla movie is actually like a really good
pretty good.
They do a good job of adapting King Ghidorah, Rodan, Mothra. Like they give me what I want. Obviously the human stuff is garbage. But right now
Millie Bobby Brown should not be in a Godzilla movie.
No,
I'm sorry.
Shouldn't.
Nothing against her personally. It's just like the humans are always the weakest part of Godzilla movies. And I just come on, running around with like kids and they've got this like Goonies thing going on. It's like we want to see Mechagodzilla like blow stuff up.
I was okay with Bryan Cranston because Walter White in a Godzilla movie is incredible.
Sounds good.
And Ken Watanabe was pretty good in Godzilla King of the Monsters, being the one who recharges Godzilla.
But the original Godzilla, the humans are essential and they're really compelling. Takashi Shimura's character is great. He's like the original Godzilla scientist. There's just a lot of good human drama going on in that. And we do get back to that a bit. The humans, I think, are the most compelling since Shin Godzilla, and then since before Shin Godzilla, since the original in this one. And there is definitely something being said here. I don't think it's as perfect as you do from having talked. I think there's a few moments where I'll give the brief spoiler warning and fast forward through it a little bit. When they're talking about the plane, I know that it's an ejector seat coming, especially because they just talked about the whole like value of human life thing. And I think that is a really potent message, this idea of, not treating human life dispensably, which is funny because if any series does treat human life dispensably, it's Godzilla.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it land even harder. But there's some of the plot moments by the end, they just got a little bit predictable for me when the wife was revealed not to actually, or I guess she's not technically the wife, but when the woman, I forget her character's name, Noriko, was that
I believe so, yes.
Was I forget her exact name. Sorry, bad with Japanese naming conventions. But yeah, that part I was like, I didn't need that. I would have been fine if she had stayed dead. But ultimately, I feel like the drama landed, and we got to move on to talking about the best part.
Yeah, I was going to say, so this is not called Humans -1. Although the humans finally, because I've been watching Monarch Legacy of Monsters, Godzilla fans are eating fantastically right now. And obviously, Kurt Russell, Wyatt Russell, they do a good job. But where this movie really shines is the fact that the humans are they're one half of a good movie. But the best part of this movie,
hands
obviously,
down,
is Godzilla. First off, I just want to say this character works so well because of the sound design.
Oh, yeah.
You need to see this in a movie theater with surround sound. Because, for example, the sound of Godzilla charging up the atomic breath, I guess it's more technically an ionic breath in this one, but, the sound of it powering up.
I think it's atomic breath, right?
Either way, the sound of it powering up, it's just like, zoo, 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 and it felt like Top Gun Maverick.
Can you do that again?
Zoo, 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 zoo. Where it's like this is why I come to the movies. Like Nicole Kidman says, we come to the movies. And this was one of those reasons. So the sound design was impeccable. The scale of Godzilla. They do such a good job of shooting him from where you're only seeing up to the shin and then slowly panning up and you're like, this is huge. What would I do?
Godzilla works so well. I mean, the terror of Godzilla is his size, right? That's the thing that makes him scary, which is very different from a lot of other, Godzilla was never really a horror movie, but a frightening movie, if you will, in that, usually it's kind of a sneaky, oh, the killer could be behind the corner. Godzilla's enormous. And I don't know, have you ever seen a whale in real life?
I have not seen a whale in real life.
Very cool experience because that animal is just enormous. I've only ever seen a whale once in real life, and they really capture kind of some of that same feeling in this movie, which makes sense. Godzilla is partially based on whales.
Yeah.
But they, when they're out on the boat and they run into Godzilla and this just enormous thing swims under the boat or comes out and you see a little bit of it and it's okay, that's kind of big. And then you realize it's even bigger than you expected. They just do such a good job. The effects sometimes don't look great when he's on land. They don't look as good as we've ever seen. But when he's in the water, fantastic. He looks realistic. The way the light is going off of him just looks awesome, and the destruction is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is one of the best designs for Godzilla we've seen in a long time, and just a really well thought out movie.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I will say is the 2014 or 2015 Godzilla movie that Gareth Edwards made that I actually really do enjoy. Where it really excels is it makes you wait and wait and wait for Godzilla, kind of like in Jaws, where you don't get all of the shark. And so I thought this was going to be an issue. I was like, well, if you put Godzilla in a lot of the movie, you're going to blow your load too quickly and it's just not going to work. Your load of atomic breath, that is to say. This movie doesn't struggle with that because you get Godzilla, but he's terrifying. All of it. You do not want to mess with him.
I like that decision a lot too because I know we got to wrap up soon, but when Godzilla shows up in the beginning of this movie, there's this is all the explanation we get. Some guy's like, what is it? And then another guy says, it's Godzilla. Yeah. And they're like, what's Godzilla? He's like, don't worry about it. They just kind of go, which is great, because at this point, we all know who Godzilla is. It's like when people were saying, we don't need another Spider-Man origin story. We all know he shoots webs, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Kind of a similar thing, and I like that movies, these franchise movies are getting to a point where they don't feel the need to do that, and we can just get right into the thing we like. So this movie did a really good job being a piece of a franchise and also bringing something new to the table and bringing back elements from that we haven't seen for decades and decades.
Yeah, the last two things I want to say about this movie that I thought were fantastic. First off, I love the decision to not dub it. I think subtitled is absolutely the way to go. The actors all do a phenomenal job. I feel bad. I don't want to butcher any of their names, so I'm not going to try. But they do incredible, and I think seeing the subtitles is the right way to watch it. I will also say this movie only cost $15 million. And
That's
that
crazy.
includes the marketing budget.
Wow.
And it looks better than, like, I'm going to be honest, the Marvels. This movie looks drastically better.
I think substantially better.
It's a drastically better movie. And it's because this movie is made with love for this character. And yes, he is a destructive force of nature, but they still treat him with so much love and respect. And I'm excited for Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. I'm excited for Godzilla -2. Who knows what they're gonna? The naming convention of the non-English ones is just a little absurd. But if I were to score this movie,
-1 is a cool. We'll give you a brief trivia.
Yes,
fact.
actually,
-1 is a cool reason behind the name. So the saying was after World War II, after the bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that Japan was reduced to zero, ground zero. So in this movie, because Godzilla immediately follows the wake of the war, he has reduced them to -1. So they never address it, but if you wanted to know that trivia fact,
literal
very
chills.
cool. And Toho really, just does a great job always with Godzilla. They understand how important and how great of a character and a franchise they have.
Yeah. Well, for my score, I'm going to give this movie a -1 plus 11. That's right, I'm giving it a 10, which is maybe too strong. Like, I have nothing that I want to change about this movie. I have no issues with it. It was just a magnificent piece of Godzilla cinema, but it also had so much to say about what it was like to be in Japan after the war and try and rebuild, and the indomitability of the human spirit. And I thought it was incredible. And I know it's not Japan's submission for Best Foreign Film, but honestly, I wish it was, because I've seen Anatomy of a Fall and I've seen The Taste of Things. Honestly, I think it's better than both of them.
I haven't seen both of those other movies yet. I'm still waiting to watch them. But I walked out of Godzilla -1 feeling between like an 8 and a 9. And some of the things that had me bring down to an 8 was, some of the plot points are a little predictable. But the more I started to think about it, I started to think some of this was kind of referencing like 50s filmmaking conventions. And that brought it up a little bit. So to say brought it up a little bit, it is still a 9, which is higher than Sonic 2, a movie that I love and gave an 8. So yeah, this movie is great, and make sure you take the chance to see it in theaters.
Before we go, real quick, I want to say for the audience, this is Roman's last ever review crew episode. Roman, thank you so much for your time. You are the host of the Forward Lateral, a fantastic sports podcast. Do you want to plug it to the audience real quick so they know where to find it?
The Forward Lateral, it's on Spotify. It's a NFL podcast. Final season right now. I might miss a week or two. But yeah, check it out. But Gabe, thank you for having me do these reviews. It's been a ton of fun. Almost as fun as Godzilla -1.
Almost as fun, except for the Japanese people in that movie, but we don't have to worry about it. Like Godzilla, it's time for us to retreat back into the sea, and then some other stuff will happen, we won't spoil it. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.